Here's 3 guidelines I like to keep in mind whenever I'm using my tremolo or vibrato to play R&B music. I call them the 3 S's: smooth, subtle, and sometimes. What I mean by smooth is that you want your vibrato effect to fit in with the rhythm of the song you're already playing. So it shouldn't be something like this. All right, you see how it's kind of like janky and it sticks out? It doesn't match what we're doing. We want it to be. Okay, and you see there, just a little rule of thumb, I tend to stick to either eighth notes if I'm in a 4/4 time rhythm, or triplets if I'm in like a 6/8 feel, which is, this would be like a 6/8 feel. So I'm going da 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 da. So it's like a triplet movement. You don't have to necessarily stick to that perfect timing, but it's something that gets you started. Triplets or eighth notes if you're in 4/4 time. All right, this ties into the second thing that we want to do, which is we want to keep it subtle. And that kind of ties in with smoothness, because if you have a really jerky rhythm, it's not going to be very subtle. What we're going for is a gentle modulation of the pitch of the chord that we're playing. So we want it to be kind of pulling it slightly out of tune and then back in tune and out of tune, similar to how a singer uses vibrato. And you have to do that subtly. To do that, I am barely wiggling this tremolo bar at all. It's very slight. Just a little bit more pressure than it would be to simply rest my hand on the tremolo bar. All right, so it's very slight wiggles. And you can almost barely tell that it's going out of tune. That's what we want. We want that subtle sound where it's just hovering around being in pitch. All right, so smooth and subtle. Those are our first 2 S's. Final S is sometimes. You don't necessarily want to use a tremolo for every single chord. A good rule of thumb is that whenever you have a chord that's kind of plain and it's just ringing out there, you just give it a little wiggle, just to add a little bit of interest, a little bit of modulation, especially when you're holding that chord out for a good while. All right, and then for instance, in that piece that I was just playing, which by the way is A minor 9, it's an E minor 7 and a D minor 7. Okay, and so what I like to do, if I'm going to be doing any kind of embellishments on a particular chord, I'll try to leave that vibrato out. I don't always do that. It's not like a strict rule, but you can get away with not using the vibrato in those moments. So let's say I'm just doing my A minor 9, plain, so I'm using my tremolo, going to the E minor 7. You don't really need it, right? You can do those little embellishments will give enough interest to where you don't necessarily need to use that. And it's kind of complicated to use it at the same time. And when I go to that D minor 7, now I can use the vibrato again. And it just sounds nice, really. So those are really the only 3 things I try to keep in mind when I'm playing with the vibrato for R&B style music. For other genres, it's a little bit different. You might be doing some crazy dive bombs or whatever it is, where you're really pulling it out of tune, right? But for R&B, we want to keep it really sweet, really subtle. Sweet's another good S word, but really subtle, smooth, and just sometimes. Don't go overboard with it. It shouldn't really stick out. If it sticks out enough to distract someone, you're doing too much. Hopefully that helps. I'll see you next time.